Okay.
Should I start
Thank you.
sharing?
Yep. Thank you,
Yes.
Eric. Really appreciate you doing this. And just so everybody knows, Eric has done full all day Excel seminars for our FANG group, or probably 3 over the past 10 years. And he's great. He's very generous with his time and sharing his skills with us. So thank you again, Eric. Take it away.
Okay. Hopefully everybody can hear me. I'm going to get my screen going here. There we go. Share. Okay, I got to make all these pictures small enough. Let's see. Well, okay. I think we're in good shape. Okay, if everybody can hear me, we're going to continue on. What I'm going to share with you today are a bunch of just tips and tricks that I've used over the years. I continue to use, kind of give you some of my feelings about Excel. I've been using Excel 30 some years. That's what I do for a living now, although I'm semi-retired, but I do consulting for my clients in Excel. I create little apps for them. My strength is in writing Visual Basic macros for my clients, but these are just a lot of tips and techniques. What I'm going to do also at the end of this, Mike has given me a list of all the emails. So I am going to send everybody a set of files. You don't have to take a bunch of notes here if you want, just kind of listen, and then you can take a look at them when you get the files. So here's an agenda of the things I'd like to cover today. I've allocated about 2 minutes a piece. That gets me to an hour. I don't know if I'm going to finish them all, but I think we'll just sign off at 1 o'clock, and then you can catch the ones that I couldn't get to. Let's start just a couple things about the versions of Excel that are out there. There have been a ton of versions. This is just a list from when I started using it back here around early 1990s. I switched over to Excel from, basically I was never a Lotus user. I was a SuperCalc user, but so I've been using it since the early 90s. We've had 15 different versions of Excel. They just get bigger and bigger and more capability as they go on. So I'm just going to give you a kind of overview. 2016 was one of the later versions. They're always bringing in these new features, and I'll be very honest with you. A lot of these new features to me are pretty superfluous. You'll probably never use them. Here's the ones they touted for 16. They gave you 6 new chart types, and this is just a sample of them. They gave you something called a tree map chart. To me, it's kind of useless. I don't think I'll ever use it. They have something they created called a sunburst chart. It looks like this. Again, for business people, not sure I'd use that either. Histograms, that's a misnomer. You've always had histograms available, but now they're touting it as one of their standard chart types. Same thing with a Pareto chart. They also have a new thing called a box and whisker chart. I think if you're using stock prices, this might be useful. And then this thing called a waterfall chart. That's kind of it. Not that, to me, that great. They came up with this thing called Power Query, which is really pretty useful. I have not used it a lot. I just haven't been needing it for my clients, but it's also called Get and Transform. And if you're interested, I'm not going to talk about it today, but it's under the data ribbon, and it's called Get and Transform. You can take data from all different sources and basically transform it, because that just saves you a lot of time. It actually is kind of like a macro recorder in that you do the steps and it remembers your steps so that you can then refresh it later. It's kind of cool, but it's not for the everyday user probably. You can do 3D maps. You've got some pivot table enhancements. You've got some color schemes and, good stuff, but is it really a major increase? I would say not a major increase. So not much new for the average user. There have been some problems. There always are when they do new versions. This is my little personal opinion. I still get Excel crashing on me, and I would really love it if they would just fix the darn product. Hold off on the new features for a while, get the whole base product working perfectly, and then add a few new features. But that's not how you make money, so they don't do that. Okay. So that's 2016. Now, the next versions, which are getting us right up to today, there was a 2019 version of Excel, and that was what we call on-prem. That's a licensed version. You buy, you get the license, but it's basically frozen. You don't get updates. You don't get anything new. And at the same time, we also started getting Excel 365. Now, I'm using 365 today. You'll see that's what you see. And I would have to say, I was a little leery when I first heard about 365. I didn't understand it that well, but it's actually almost like on-prem. You actually load it down to your system. You don't run it in the cloud. You run it right on your system, but it's a subscription service. So it's really pretty reasonable when you think about it. I think I pay $99. I believe I get either 5 or 10 copies of it. So I'm very happy with it. And the best feature of it is that you get new features as they're available. They're automatically downloaded to you. So I'll show you a few of these new features. I'm just going to read them because I don't want to take a lot of time. They have a new one called Concat. And what it does is it'll concatenate a range. Now, all of these have other ways to do them. I got along just fine for 20 some years without any of these, but they're kind of like, I don't know how to describe it. They just add a few new twists to it, make it a little bit easier, but I wouldn't spend a lot of time to learn these unless you see a real need. So what does Concat do? Well, you can take a range like this and you can put it together with Concat. You can insert a delimiter by using something called text join. So I can put dashes between them. Okay, but I can do the same things other ways. They have a new function that's kind of cool called ifs, IFS, instead of IF. And what this can do is replace those long, ugly nested if statements. So it'll check multiple conditions and return the first true one. So here I have a formula that does ifs, and I look at a bunch of things, and it gives me the first one that's true. We have a switch function, evaluation expression against a list. Then we have something called max ifs and min ifs. So you can set a range of conditions and it'll tell you which ones. Here's a really quick example just to show you. Let's say you had a bunch of test scores and you already sorted them into grades A, B, C, D, or whatever. You can then say, well, give me the maximum of all the A grades. And this is how you would do it. So if it's unique to your situation, fine, but you can usually do them another way. This one is kind of interesting. And again, I'll just mention it. They decided, in the old days, we've always had a VLOOKUP, an HLOOKUP, and then you could do index and match, which kind of got around some of the problems with those two. But now they have a new function, if you have 365 only, that's called XLOOKUP. And it kind of replaces all three of those. It's okay. Again, if you're familiar and you're already using VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, and index and match, I wouldn't spend too many hours trying to do XLOOKUP, but if you're interested, what it does is it says, hey, if you've got an array that is your lookup array and you tell it that, and then you tell it the return array and you tell it what you want to look up, it'll give you the answer. So it doesn't matter if it's sideways, horizontal, vertical, or anything else. So that's kind of cool. But remember that if you're using any of these functions in 365 and you send it to a client who does not have 365, they will not be able to run them. They're going to get errors. So just make sure. And here's another comment. I actually do most of my work for my clients in Excel 2010. So there's a 10-year-old product, and I use it because it's fast, it's quick, it does everything I need, and I'm writing Visual Basic code. And I know if I run it in 10 and it works, it will absolutely work whether my client has 13, 16, 19, or 365. So it kind of inoculates me against any errors due to problems with versions. Now, this is one of the nicest features I have seen that came out, I think, in 2013 or 16, and it's called Flash Fill. And it really does amazing things. You should be aware of this one. It will reshape your imperfect data quickly. Artificial intelligence is really what it's using. And you can set it up automatic. By default, it should be set up to work automatically. So let me show you what it does. If you have a list, I'm going to clear this. You have a list of names, let's say, of employees. And you notice these names, if you can see them, are capitalized first and last name, but there's no space between them. I want to reshape that data to be last name, comma, space, first name. All I have to do with Flash Fill is start typing it the way I want to see it. SPRAT, comma, space, Jack. Okay, you do the first one. Now you go to the next one and you start typing Z for Zappa. Now, did you see what happened? It automatically looked at what I did, made an assumption about how I want the rest of them to be treated, and said, well, this is what I'd like to do. If you like it, hit enter, and it's done. It is really amazing. And I made this quite difficult because if you know how to use left, mid, right, and all the different text functions, you will be very much challenged to write a formula to do what I just did automatically and quickly. Let me show you how else it can work. I have not tested too many, but this is a simple example. Let's take a part number and put 2 dashes and then put the bin number. Now let's do the second one. I just type 1 letter and it's done. Okay, now let's go to the last one. Let's take and separate all the cities from the states. So we're going to go down here and type Fairbanks and then Birmingham, and you can see it's already figured them out. Now, this is a nuance. I only mention it in 5 seconds, but when I used to do this in 13 only, not 365, it would usually miss Las Vegas. Oh, it did. I'm sorry. Well, here's what we do to fix the miss. Let's go to Las Vegas and retype it. Wait a minute, AS, Vegas, and hit that. Now, did you see how it figured, oh, gee, I missed that. So Cocoa Beach came in okay, and now Fort Worth did. So the only thing you need to know about is don't have any blank columns. Have your raw data and then do it right next door to it. It only works on visible rows. So if you have filters, don't do it. And Control E is a shortcut. If it doesn't work, try doing a shortcut on it. So anyway, that one I think is worth you kind of checking out and learning about. Now here's another new one that came in, I think in 13 or 16. If you're doing financial analysis and you've got a bunch of data, all you have to do is take all these data and just select them. And what you're going to see in the lower right corner is this little icon, and it's called Quick Analysis. So let's click it, and you'll see the choices you get. Now, all I'm going to do with my mouse is hover over these. I'm going to go to Formatting, see we have charts and all that, and I'm going to hover over data bars, and it automatically applies some data bars. I can do colors. I can do icon sets on them. I can do greater than, less than, clear. You want to see some charts, click the chart options. As soon as it comes in here, so it's a little slow today. Okay, there is some chart options you can look at. You can look at some total options just by, so I'm just hovering on these. And when you like what you see, you would just click it and it will stay that way. So something to maybe just speed up your time is what it is. You've got some financial analysts working for you. This would hopefully speed up what they might do on their, there's a table you could set up. I just did the table. So that one's kind of cool. There are many, many, many shortcuts in Excel in the range of 150 or 160, just using Control key and a few others. There's 6 of them just to think about if you're not using them. Control A, I use it a lot now. If you just take a cell and you do Control letter A, you're going to select the contiguous range, which is called the current region. That'll be that rectangle that's being used. The next time you do it, I'm going to do it one more time. It will select your entire spreadsheet. So that just selected every cell on my spreadsheet. F1, Control F1 will toggle my ribbon. You can see the ribbon getting smaller up there. That saves space so you have more room to work down here because this ribbon is pretty deep. Control 1 only, just Control number 1. That brings up your alignment, your font, your border, and all these guys, which are pretty useful. Otherwise, you go up here and do the same thing. Control semicolon will put a date into a cell. So if I clear that cell and I just do Control semicolon, you'll get the date. And now it's hard stamped into the cell. It's not going to change. It would take a formula, which is the today formula to do that. If you want the time, I'll clear that. We're going to do Control Shift and do the time 12:18. So those are 6 you might want to I didn't even mention Control C and Control V, but I assume you probably use those anyway. Now here's an issue that I run into not all the time, but more than I'd like sometimes, creating numbers with leading zeros. The problem is that if you type in 0, 1, 2, 3, Excel is going to ignore the 0 and put in 1, 2, 3. What if you need those? Well, here are some solutions, and each one has some drawbacks. Solution 1. you can enter the number and then custom format it with leading zeros. So what I've done here, it says 1, but I've actually gone into that and I have custom formatted that on the customs. Let's look at number custom, and I put leading zeros in. Now that's okay. That means that it will appear as leading zeros on the screen, but underlying it is not. So it depends what you're going to do. If you just want it to look like a leading zeros, that's a solution. Another solution that will actually make it a leading zero is to say, here's my raw number, but I'm going to go to this cell and I'm going to use the text function, text, and I'm going to reference the B16, and then I'm going to put in double quotes how I want it to appear. So I put in the leading zeros there, and that will cause it to actually be that number. So it's going to show up with this in it. It's going to look like it's going to be that number. It's going to be text. You could format it as text ahead of time. In other words, go into that cell, take number, and format it as text. So if you've done that ahead of time and you type this number in of 001234, that is what it's going to be. And it's going to be text. You can see number stored as text. Or you could enter each number with an apostrophe in front of it. That's kind of it. I don't know any other way to do it, but just be aware that when you've entered it either one of these ways, that number is not a number. If you need it to be a number later on, there's a couple of choices. You could say equals value, and then you could reference the number, and you would notice that now it's turned it back into a value if it had done that, which it didn't do it, which is interesting, probably because I made that as text. That's what happens when you do stuff online. Let me just see if I can fix it with going to general. I think that should do it. Now let's do this. And let's do it again. Now it fixed it. Okay. All right. Merging cells. I dislike merging rather intensely. I do it very rarely, only when I need to do it. What is merging? Well, it's this option you have up on your home ribbon that gives you really 3 options: merge in center, merge across, or merge cells. And of course, you can unmerge. So use them with caution. There are unintended consequences that I will show you. But merge in center merges all cells across the selected range. So if I take those and I go up here and I do merge in center, they will all get merged, but it will notice that there are 2 cells with numbers. So let's see what happens. Merging cells only keeps the upper left value and discards it. So the 4, 5, 6 is going to be deleted, and you'll end up with that type of a situation. If you merge across, it basically does the same thing, but it will do it for multiple rows. So I can do this. I'll do merge across, and notice where the cells wind up: left, mid, and right, because that's the way I have them organized. So they organize left, mid, right when the merge is done. So that's how that works. Now the last one is called merge cells. That's the most serious, in that it merges everything that you tell it to. So I take that whole section and I get down here and I say merge them all together. It only keeps the upper left one, the rest go away, and it merge and centers. So that's kind of what they do. Now, what are the problems? Number one, you can't sort when you have merged cells, okay? So if I take this and I try and sort it, I'm going to data, and I'm going to go to my sort, and I'm going to try and sort it on months, and let's see what happens, okay? To do this, all merged cells need to be the same size. Well, one of the problems with that is you may not know where they're merged. You don't always get to see it like this. I had a client called me once. She had an entire spreadsheet of thousands of cells and could not do any sorting. Well, there were several cells down in the middle that were merged. Well, you can mess up all your sorts. You can't copy paste a lot of times. I'm going to do a control C and try and do a control V, and you'll see we can't do that in a merged cell. You can't insert new columns a lot of times. I won't do it here because it works half the time. You can't auto fit the row height when it has merged cells. You put those together and you try and auto fit it, it collapses. So that doesn't work. That's a really ugly workaround. You have to find out how wide they are, go make one over here that's 24 wide, put it in here and reference it back. So to me, there's more problems than it's worth. So what do? Well, I'm kind of old school. I like the way it used to be back in 2003 and prior. We never had this thing up here called merge cells. We used to have something called center across the selection. And that's how I do it. So let's say I have this and I want to make it across that. Instead of going to merge, I'm going to alignment, and I'm looking at the horizontal choices, and I'm going to center it across the selection. So it looks like a merge, but every cell is now unique and different, and it's across the selection. Biggest problem is this is cumbersome. To go up here every time, do this, there's no other shortcut. So you build your own shortcut, which I will tell you about. But here's one. I just go like this. I click it, it goes back and forth, and it merges. I have that up on my toolbar because I use it all the time. It's right here, center across selection toggle, and that's what the macro looks like. Now, I'm going to show you a few macros today, and what I'm going to also send you as a file is a file that I use in my UCLA seminar that I do, that I've been doing for years, and it has 14 different macros. This is one of them that you can install yourself and put it on your quick access toolbar, and they'll save you a lot of time. And this has instructions for how it works. So I'll show you that at the end of the day. New windows. Now, this is something I do a lot when I'm working on a large file. I often want to see what's in one window while I'm working in another window, especially if I have links between those two windows. So let's show you how you can do this. What you do is you go up to the view options, and over here, we're going to go to this thing called new window. Click. Now, what it did is it created a new window. Now, it doesn't look too much different, except that it has all the grid lines on it. And that's your biggest clue that you now have a new window. If you had grid lines on the other one, it's not going to look any different, but I never use grid lines, so it looks quite different. Now, in order to see them both, you need to go back to view, and you need to arrange them. So we're going to arrange them all, and we're going to do the windows of the active workbook. Now, this is a problem that I come up with, and I can't tell you why I see it, but because I want to show you what it's going on, I'm actually going to close Excel and reopen it, because I want to show it to you, and it doesn't let me do it sometimes. I don't know why. Screen sharing is stopped. Whoops. Okay, I'll get us back. Don't worry, guys. Let me get Excel. It should work the second time. Now let's go back here. Let me share my screen. There's my screen. Share it. You should have it back. Now I'm going to reload it. It should work the second time. I tried it this morning, and it worked one time, and the second time it did not. So let's go back and redo it one more time. Let's get that small. The shared window is closed. It says you can't see my screen. Let's make sure you can.
We cannot.
You cannot see my screen. Okay, what did I do wrong? Let's see. Can you get me back, Mike? Do I have to rejoin?
It's
quit Zoom. I'm zooming. Let me try Zoom again. Join a meeting. Do I have to sign in? Hopefully not.
You're in the meeting, Eric.
I am in it. Okay.
But apparently you've stopped screen sharing. Try screen sharing. Try sharing the screen again.
All right. Let me see if I can get back. There's my Zoom. I don't want to leave the meeting. Oh. Close, minimize, maximize. Oh, the joys of modern technology.
You're having too many windows open.
Probably.
Try tab, Eric. Sometimes that allows you to go back to the main Zoom window.
Just hit tab. All right.
Yeah.
Let's try this. It's like I'm in the window, but it's not letting me share. It would be easier if I just rejoined it, Mike. Would that work?
Well, does the share screen green button?
I can't get to the problem is I can't get to those buttons anymore. I keep going back here to what it looks like. Zoom Cloud Gatherings. And it says join a meeting. Sign in.
No,
you should be able to. You should be able to go to the Zoom and see everybody on.
Maybe minimize that screen. The other screen might be underneath it.
Well, let's see. If I minimize this screen.
Has Eric been spotlighted so that he can share his screen?
I had.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was sharing it before.
I'm almost thinking, Mike, if I just sign right back in, won't that do it?
And Mike's muted, so we can't hear him.
Oh. I'm going to try that. Hold on, guys. Let me just sign back.
Eric, when you come back in,
Yeah.
Mike has to allow you to share again.
Okay. Well, is that going to be a problem? Because I'm not having much luck on
But
this.
Mike needs to spotlight you when you come back in.
Okay.
There you go. Anybody have a joke they'd like to share while we wait? No jokes. All right, come on in there, Eric. Okay, admitting. Okay, come on, Eric.
Here's my mic and here's my video. Okay. I think I'm back.
Okay, I don't see you anywhere. I'm trying to find you here.
I see you. I see everybody.
Yeah, I
Okay,
see you, Eric.
Let me
And
see if
then-
I can share this now.
I just made you a co-host again. Hold on.
Okay. I think I'm back.
Yeah,
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Well, that didn't work too well, and I can't tell you why, but I think I'll just skip that. Anyway, you can open up the new windows. It's really cool. There is a little button you can do it with. I'm a little afraid to try it right now, but it'll create new windows, and it's on my file I'm going to send you, selected macros. Let's go on. Okay, Format Painter. This one's really cool. I use it all the time. It allows you to just paint another cell by one click. So I've got this cell, I click my painter, I click my other cell, and it transfers it. But the nice thing is if you double click that cell, it stays on. It stays on as long as you keep it on until you either hit the escape or you just click it one more time. And there's another little trick with it. I don't use it too often, but if you have cells like this and you want to paint them, if you just click it and then go swish, you get that same thing. You know, you click it once or twice, and every time you do it, you get that same thing painted elsewhere. So kind of interesting. Unhiding multiple sheets. This is one of the things that Excel has never in 30 plus years changed. If you have more than one sheet hidden, you cannot unhide them all at the same time. You have to do them one at a time. I don't understand why. For instance, I have a lot of hidden sheets here. If I were to go unhide, I have to do each one at a time. I couldn't just hold down my control key or my shift key and do them all. So for years, I have a macro that does it. This is an example of it. It's called my hidden sheet macros here. So I have 26 sheets, and if you looked at them, you would do an unhide on them. Let's see it down here. Well, let's hide them first. There's 26 sheets. If I hide them, I'll just hide them with a macro. I have 10 sheets hidden. When I go look at them, I cannot select more than one at a time, no matter what I do. So what I've done is this macro unhides all the sheets. It's a simple 3-line macro and unhides all your sheets. It's just, it's so useful. I have it up here. It's this little guy that looks like unhide all sheets. So if you like that one, I would definitely put that on your toolbar. The F4 key, there's 12 function keys on the top. I'm not going to talk about any of the 11, but this F4 is the most cool one there is. And here's 3 things it does that are fantastic. First thing is it repeats the last action you did over and over again. So I'm going to do an action, which is inserting a new column. Now I'm going to press F4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now I'm going to do another action to delete that column. Now I'm going to press F4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
wow.
So it does things over and over. I love it for cleaning up things. Like I'll have a bunch of data that I want to clean up, random, different ones. So I'll do one cell to delete, or one row. So I deleted that row. Then I just go, oh, I want to do those, F4. I want to do this one and this one, F4, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. So fast, quick, and efficient. So that's number 1. Number 2 is it changes all your cell formulas between absolute and relative, which is really, really a cool thing to do. If you've got some B8 to D8 and you were to copy it from here with a control C and put it over here, it would be 0 because of course it moves all those references. But if you go over here and you change the references with a $ in front of them, but you have to put them in manually, it won't. Well, guess what? We can highlight it and press F4 and everything gets a $. Pretty cool, huh? Or you can highlight one portion and hit it, and it gets dollar signs, no dollar signs. It goes around 4 different options just by clicking 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
That one I know.
So there is how you should be changing your absolute relative references.
Right.
And here is a third one that I didn't discover until about 3 or 4 years ago. I subscribed to a bunch of, blogs on it. And this one guy called the Excel Addict showed how to do this. And I said, unbelievable. It transfers your page setups. In other words, this page has been set up to print pretty nicely. So if I do a print, it does this print preview. Well, if you have another page, let's make a new sheet. Okay, so I'm going to do Shift F11. I'm going to, whoops, wrong one. Don't let your fingers get ahead of your hands. Okay, so Shift F11, I got a new sheet. So let's take a new sheet here and let's just put some data into it. And let's see if I was to print that data now, it would look like what? Kind of like that. But what I like to do is take the format of this sheet setup, this page layout that's over here, and let's transfer it. So here's how you do it. You go to the sheet that has the layout you want, and you go up to page layout, you click your little arrow, and you don't do anything except say, okay. That actually triggered the F4 to remember it. Now I go over to the sheet 1 and I press F4. Now let's see how this page would print. Presto. Unbelievable, right? I wish I'd known that one about 10, 15 years ago. I would have saved myself a lot of time. So let's get rid of that sheet. This gets rid of a sheet. Like I said earlier, there's 150 or 60 shortcuts. I would never recommend you try to memorize them all, but you may find 5 or 10 you like. You probably should work on those. And so this is a list I found on the internet many years ago, and I like the way it's laid out. It's actually 2 pages worth, and it takes all the keys on your keyboard, except for the number keys, I guess, and it tells you what happens when you use the F1 key alone, Shift, Control, Alt, or if it's blank, it doesn't do anything. And we have some keys that do 5 different things. F6 evidently does 5 different things depending on how you do it. So I'm showing you some good ones here that I like. F11 gives you a new worksheet. Fill down is pretty good. Fill right, fill left. And what I'd recommend is take this and hang it over your PC. This is what it looks like on mine. I've got them all in my shortcut keys. I can access them whenever I want to see them. So a good idea. Let's talk about file bloat. This happens. I've had a couple clients that send me panic emails saying this file used to be, 500 kilobytes and all of a sudden it's 12 megabytes. What happened? Well, what usually seems to happen is you get accidental bloat. Sounds like, problem our dog had. They get bloat. But anyway, it suddenly gets large, calculates slowly, saves and loads slowly. Well, the typical cause is somebody accidentally entered data or did unique formatting of all the unused cells on the sheet. And this is what happens. If you have a simple file and you just have some data in one cell, and then you copy that data all the way down to the 1,048,576 rows, it goes from 8 kilobytes to 5.5 megabytes just with one column. So you can see the severity of the problem. Okay, so how do you fix it? Well, first you got to locate it. I would go to each sheet one at a time, and I would use the control end to determine the end of the used range. Now, if I do control end on this sheet, where's my control end? You see it goes down to cell AN68. Well, that's not too bad. I guess at some point I use that. It keeps track of wherever you put your last cell in, and it makes that rectangle the used range. So if it goes down to cell 1048576, you've got a problem. So what you do is you're going to delete all the rows or columns below and to the right of the cell that you want. And then you must save and reopen the file. It's not until you save and reopen it that it will reset that used range and solve your bloat problem. So it could be a little, take you some time with a large spreadsheet, but that's what you have to do. Dynamic numbering. I saw this trick from one of my clients 5 or 6 years ago, and I've been using it ever since. When you're numbering things in Excel, people typically put a 1 in a cell. And then they go to the next cell and they'll say, well, take B5 plus 1. And then they'll just copy that down as far as they need it. It works perfectly until you do something like this, where you take row 3 and you delete it. Well, you get these ref errors. What do? You have to go do this again, right? Well, they came up with a very simple solution. I just love it. It uses what's called the max function. So what you basically do is you put a formula in the cell. And now what does this formula do? Well, it's the max formula. And if you look at what it does, go up here. Well, I'll just type it. If you go equals MAX, do Control A, you put in a series and it will give you the largest number in that series. So by putting this formula, take the max of everything from B15 to B15. But you notice the $2 signs, I'm going to freeze the top cell and then let this one float and then add 1. And you know, I'm currently in B16. So when you copy it down, you're going to get it. Everyone is looking up above to see the max. And when this sees 5, it goes to 6. This one sees 6, it goes to 7. Now watch what happens when I delete a row. Delete, these guys renumber. You want to add a row? Insert. Okay, I insert this. Then I take this cell and I just copy it down. Everything renumbers. So like I said, I've been using this for many years. I like it well enough that I created a little macro that does it for me. When I click this macro, it puts that formula into the cell and then I can just copy it down for the rest of them. So again, doesn't save a lot of time, but hey, 5 minutes here, 2 minutes there, before you know it, you've saved hours. Concatenation. As I mentioned, they've gotten some new functions to make this maybe a little more useful, but just understanding concatenation will get you a lot. What it does is it joins the multiple cells contents together. And what you're going to be using is the ampersand. It's the uppercase number 7, and that will join things together. It has many, many uses. Okay, here's one. Changing all your date headers at the same time. So I make this a little bigger. So if my date header says January 21, then I can use that cell, which is B9, over here with concatenation to say balance sheet as of. And there's my B9, and my header has automatically got this in it. When it changes to February, it says balance sheet as of February 28th. The same thing for P&L. We're all referencing that same master cell, but we have a whole bunch of different headings. Our P&L, our balance sheet, our cash flow all reflect the new heading. So there's absolutely no reason to go be changing all of your headings when they're date sensitive across your sheets. You're just going to have a master cell and you're going to reference it with concatenation to make your new headings happen. It's very quick and simple. Another one that I use occasionally is I need to locate duplicate records in a database. Now, you can always eliminate records, but the problem is, you know, when you do data remove duplicates, it actually removes them. I just want to identify them. So what I've been doing over the years is I'll take this simple database with 3 fields and I'll combine them. I'll just concatenate them together. So this is totally unique. And then over here, I'll just say do a COUNTIF of how many unique records there are. And you'll see that I've got this one, this is a duplicate. If it says 2, everything should say 1. This would be a duplicate. So that's how I quickly find and I can visualize what are duplicate records. Okay. Another thing that I use a lot is I show my assumptions within my P&L or balance sheet by referencing wherever it comes from. So if my price per item is $125, I could have a cell that I'm just doing with concatenation that says revenue and text of that and units text. It will then spell it out for me. So if the revenue goes to 100, this automatically changes once I hit it. And now it's 10,000 units at 100. So this is how, again, you update all of your stubs when something changes elsewhere in your model. Linking text boxes. You know, one of the things you can do in Excel is you can say insert and give me a text box. I think it's over here, text box. And it will draw this thing called a text box where you can put stuff inside of it. But you don't have to just put it inside. What you can do is link it. So let's say I've got this chart. I can create a formula down here that is doing the analysis. It says April is the lowest month because I've asked it to go through and look at the minimum, and then I put it into a cell that is basically text. Then what I do with my text box is I just click it and I go up here and I say equals, and I just say, well, give me what's ever in this text box. And you'll see that it then puts it in. I can format it, make it however I want it to be. Let's see, if I do this and this, it'll make it look nice. So that now reflects this. And then when I have a different number here, it'll say March is the lowest month at 100. And you can put that right in the middle of your chart. So it's a pretty quick and simple operation, actually. F8, I hate this. I learned the hard way what it was. It happened accidentally to me, and all of a sudden I couldn't get rid of it. Stay away from F8. What it does is, if you'll see down here, it extends the selection. So all of a sudden you start getting this, and you think your computer broke, and you don't know what you're doing. So just get rid of it. The camera function has been around literally for 20 some years, maybe 25. I can't remember when it first came in, but it's still very useful. I think the easiest way to access it is to put it on your quick access toolbar. And again, I'll show you really quickly, but if you customize your toolbar and you look at all the commands that are out there and you scroll down, you should be able to quickly find under the C area this thing that looks like a camera. So let's see if I can find it quickly. Where is camera? Right here. So you do camera and you'd add it to your toolbar. And that's what I have up here, is I have a little camera icon right here. So what does it allow you to do? Well, this is what it does. You've got a bunch of data, and over here you have summarized that data into a P&L summary. But what you want to do is you want to have this summary located here, and you don't want to drag and drop it because you're going to have problems with the formatting of the columns. So what you do is you select it, click your camera button once, and you just draw it with your mouse. And then you can put it wherever you want. You can size it because it's now an object, and it'll fit perfectly. And when you go to print, it works very nicely. So I use it all the time. It's pretty efficient. When you double click it, it takes you right back to the source. When you double click it and it's on another tab or sheet or file, it'll take you immediately to that source. And this is some instructions on adding it to your toolbar. A couple drawbacks. You can't link into other applications like Word or PowerPoint. It does require a little bit of extra horsepower. If you have a whole bunch of these, you may see your file slowing a little bit, but I wouldn't worry about it. And it doesn't resize sometimes when you add data to the source, but those are small problems to pay. You can make 100 copies of these. And here's a little side benefit. If you've got a schedule and you want to put this schedule in an email to send to a colleague, if you copy paste it into an email, I guarantee you it won't look right. But if you make a picture of it first, and then take the picture and copy, paste it into your email, it will look perfect. So a good way to copy paste. Okay. Cell comments. When you hover over a cell that has one of these guys as a comment, you get the comment when you hover over the cell, only when you hover over the cell. This is, or you can see it all the time, but you don't usually want to see a bunch of those. So, and here's another one. It can mysteriously move around when you're filtering subtotal to sorting. I've had some comments that get like 400 lines long because you did some filtering. So it's a little tricky. So one things I've used instead of this comment is I use the data validation input message option. So I can take a cell, let's say this is my cell, I'll color it yellow. And if I want to put a message on that cell, what I do instead is I go up to data and I go into the data, I think it's this one right here, data validation. You click it and skip everything except for the input message and type whatever you want to see. So I'm going to put note, N-O-T-E, and then I'll do this. This is an important message. Okay, and then you just do okay. Now what happens then is when you click on the cell, you get the message and your mouse doesn't matter where your mouse is, it stays on. So there's your little thing down there and you click off it. I like it. Only bottom line is it only holds 256 characters, but hey, if you need more than that, Can't help you. Error checks. Anybody who's an accountant, financial person, you know that errors are usually not good. So we try to avoid them if we can. The idea is you want to trap those errors before they can mess up your model, before they can put a bunch of division zeros and things in it. So method number one is to data validate the cell to make sure nobody puts the wrong stuff into it. And that again is this data validation, which is this guy right here. So we're going to take that cell and we data validated it with a setting that says, I only want to see whole numbers and I only want to see in between 1 and 5. So if that's the criteria, this works here, but if I put 6 into it, you're going to get an error. So there's one way to do it. Or you can have a list. And there's many options and you'll have to explore them on your own, but there's my data validation. Here I've come up with a list. I've actually typed it, or you can reference it, whatever. And when somebody puts something else in there, it won't work. So another way is just have your formulas that will trap the errors before they happen. You just need to think ahead. When you have percent of revenue, what happens when revenue is 0, right? That's a problem. So you have to put in something that says, hey, if error, then put in 0. So it's just a case of thinking ahead. Let's see, I even forgot what I did down here. Oh, formulas that can check for a specified result. So when I have labor by employee, I should have it by department that agrees. In other words, that 63,000 should equal that number right there. Well, I have a cell that tells me if the absolute value of the difference is less than $1, which would mean it's okay. I don't care about pennies, put okay in. Otherwise, give me the difference. So I know instantly that that is a difference. And then I would go fix it. In this case, it's just copying the formula where it's missing. And if I put a V there, that fix it. And now it says okay. I use these extensively in the modeling that I do because you always need to check if, like, does the cash on the cash flow statement agree with cash up in the cash accounts? That would be a nice one to check on. This is I don't know, call it a trick. It's just something I learned a long time ago, and it's a way to do consolidations in Excel that's fairly foolproof. The traditional technique people use for consolidations I've seen is they'll take this cell, and I have divisions. In fact, if you look at the far right of this sheet, my data source is way over here where I've got division 1, division 2, and division 3, okay? And I put some numbers in here just to show you. And I'm accumulated them with this. I said equals division 1 D10, division 2 plus division 3. And I did that by just clicking, clicking, and clicking. The biggest problem, well, the advantage is that adjusts automatically whenever you do anything to an underlying spreadsheet back there. But the issues are it's time consuming to set up. You get long formulas. Deleting a sheet will cause a ref error, major problem. Adding sheets, you're going to have to adjust all your formulas. This is very, very unflexible, extremely unflexible. So here is the alternative. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the data source out here, and we're going to put a sheet in front of it and a sheet behind it. And there's nothing on those sheets. I call them sheet A and sheet Z. That's all they are. They're placeholders. And then I put this formula in that says, give me the sum from A to Z. Those are the names of the sheets with a little exclamation point, which tells it those are tabs, cell D10 with no dollar signs. I can copy that anywhere and it will sum all of the ones from A to Z. Easy to set up, short formulas, automatic adjustment for adding or deleting sheets. Watch this. I take sheet 2, or this sheet, which is division 1, and I'm going to move it outside. Now let's go back and take a look. See why it says 200 here, 400? Because it's missing that sheet. Well, that's easy to help. I'll just move it back inside. And now it's back. And now when I go back and look, you'll see it says 300. So all the sheets can be selected, group, underlying sheets must be set up identically. That is the biggest downside, but you know what? I don't consider that a downside. I consider that an upside, because if they're really separate divisions, they should have the same P&Ls, the same balance sheet, and you should make a common sized set of financials so that you can consolidate them this way. So it forces you into a good routine. Okay. Autofill. It's an old feature. It's been around. Most people use it. They don't even realize some of the things you can do with it. When you have a series of numbers and you just drag them, what it does is it figures out the series and it continues with it. It's pretty good, but there's another interesting aspect of it you may not know. Let me get rid of that. Is you can drag it with your right mouse key. And when you do, you get a series of other options. You don't have to just do that. You could copy just the cells and make it 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3. So next time you do it, maybe try your right mouse and you like one of the other options better. Now, so it's using the pattern basically when you just drag a cell, normally left key. Now, when you drag a cell or a series and it has no pattern, what Excel does is it automatically creates a least square linear regression trend line. It doesn't give you the formula, it just does it and it creates it. It is accurate because up here, I think I have a trend formula that does the same thing. So if you have 6 months of revenue, just grab it, drag it, you'll get a 6 months trend out of it. If you have a number and you drag it, you get the number. If you have a number and you drag it with the control key pressed, there's an extra little plus, and that will automatically increment by 1.
Wow.
This is the way it was programmed by the Microsoft engineers. You can't change it, but what's best is to just understand it and use it to your advantage. If you have text with a trailing number, no space, it will increment it by 1. Don't ask me why they did it that way, but that's what they did. If it's text with a leading number, but there's a space, then it will increment it by 1. Otherwise, it'll just copy it. Here's a quirk. If you select the range with a number and a blank, it will skip. So I'm going to select number and blank. And now let's see what happens. 1 space, 2 space, 3, 4, 5, 6. So play around with it, get used to it. Next time you do one of these autofills, you may want to use one of these techniques. Dates. Dates are interesting because if you have a date like the end of April and you just drag it, you're going to get an increment of 1 day each, which isn't always what you want. So again, if you just drag it with your right key, you can have an option. Days, no. Weekdays, no. Months, yes. 5/31, 6/30, 7/31, 8/31. So it's just a case of dragging it with your right key to get the dates to do what you want. When you got a formula, you're just going to drag it. As long as it has no dollar signs, it'll do your formula. You can also do custom lists, okay? Now, there's 4 or 5 that are already set up in Excel. If I clear this, if you drag January, you're going to get Feb, March, April, because that's automatic and you can't change it. Same with Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Now, I have quarter 1, 2, 3, 4 total set up on my machine. How did I do that? Well, you're going to go to File, Options, Advanced. File, Options. And you're going to go down to Advanced, and you're going to be looking for the custom lists way down here. And you're going to set up your own. Now, this one, this one, this one, and this one, those are the 4 that come with Excel. And you notice you can't delete them. But you can make your own. There's my own. There's mine. There's mine. I have all the letters of the alphabet. So if I type in B, it's going to give me C, D, E, F, G. Tom, Dick, and Harry. Okay, let's delete Tom, Dick, and Harry. Now let's type in a new entry. So I go new list. I go up here and I type Tom, comma, Dick, comma, and Harry. And I say add that. Now I have that in my custom list. I do OK. Hopefully I didn't screw it up. And let's go down here and let's type Tom into that cell. And let's see what happens when we drag it. Tom, Dick, and Harry. So if you've got a list that you want, put it in your custom list. And then you'll have it available not only for dragging, but I don't show it here, but it'll also be available when you do sorting, which is kind of cool. Okay, status bar, free info. Getting close to 1 o'clock, so I can do a couple more and then I'll turn it back to Mike. This is all free information in your status bar down here. If you have a bunch of cells and you highlight them, you'll notice my status bar shows all this information at the bottom: average, count, numerical count, minimum, maximum, and sum. It's ridiculous not to use this because it's free. I mean, what are you going to do with this space? Otherwise, it's just blank. I don't know why they don't just do it. but you're going to right click this, and you should probably have all of the ones checked that you see here. Because like I say, it's free. Otherwise, you'd have to do these calculations to figure those things out. Why would you do the calculation when it's free? The subtotal function. And what I'm talking about here is when you, not when you do data subtotal, but when you type equals subtotal, that creates a function which is looking for a function number and a reference. And why is it good? Well, because when you use it, you don't need a whole bunch of formulas that look like this, H21 to, and here's a, is this an example? No, I didn't do it here. But anyway, you can get very, very long ones. And they have problems when you do it this way. And the reason you did this at the bottom is because you had a total here and a total here, and you don't want it to double count. So you can't just add up everything from here to the bottom because you're going to get double. And it just doesn't work. Plus, what happens when you delete the materials row? I'll delete it here. You get a ref error when you've used it that way. Well, you can solve all of that by not using sum. What you want to use is subtotal. It's almost like sum, except it needs a number to tell it how to operate. And the number you're going to be using is number 9, which is summation. So instead of using sum H17 to 20, you're going to say subtotal 9 K17 to 20. The beauty is when you do it at the bottom with a subtotal and include it all, it ignores the 200 and the 579 because it ignores any other subtotal. So if that row were to get deleted like this is still 579.7, while that is now a ref error. So I use it all the time. It's just a more surefire way. Unless you're never going to change something, then yeah, you could probably get away with this, but things always change. It is 1:01. So Mike, I guess we'll turn it back to you and let people go eat the lunch that they didn't get to eat.
Well, thank you very much, Eric.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate you doing this for us. And just so if anybody got on late, Eric's going to be sharing this worksheet with those folks that RSVP'd for the event. And I'm going to, let me see, I got somebody coming in here. I'm going to flip back to our screen. Please don't forget May 13th, 6 p.m., Mary Falvey, and taking a strategic approach to your career. And I guess with that, Bill, do you have anything you want to add?
The only thing is, thanks, Eric. That was a lot of information and very helpful. I'm looking forward to seeing the presentation and being able to follow along rather than doing my duties as host and monitor of the chat. So thanks again. Mary will be a great speaker. I've been talking with her and working with her on another project, and looking forward to hearing her talk to us in May. So stay tuned. The announcement will come out probably after next week, and we'll have it out there on our invites very soon.
Okay, very good. Everybody stay safe, get your vaccine so we could start our in-person meetings again. Have a great day, great week. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you,
Bye.
everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.